Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about the switch cases related example here. So we identified the multiple switch cases here. Any questions regarding of the last session? Okay. So if you don't have anything, now what I will do, how we can come up with a nested switch cases here. Nested basically inside this particular switch case, if I'm going to write one more switch case, so that we'll call it as a nested switch cases here. Okay, so we'll see how this particular the nested switch cases are going to work here. How this particular nested related switch cases are going to work. So for this purpose, I'm going to create a one more class here. So nested switch I'm defining, and the main method also I'm defining it. So inside this particular main method, now what I'm doing here, observe carefully. Here we are having the count here. Here I'm having the count. So the count I'm initializing like a 12. Okay, so what happens internally, I'm going to come up with a switch case here, and here I'm trying to define the count here, and inside this particular count here, I'm going to give as a case 1 here. I'm going to give as a case 1, and this is the simple operation. We are not doing much code here, like a case 1 here, and we'll use a break here. And now what I'm doing here, case 12 here. Here I'm defining the case 12. So whenever I'm defining this particular case 12, if you observe carefully, again I'm going to come up with a one more switch case here. Okay, so this is important here, and for this purpose, now what I'm doing here, I'm going to write the target value. The target value I'm giving as a 3. The target value I'm giving as a 3. So here what I'm trying to provide, this is the target I'm giving, and inside this particular target here, now what is the values we can provide here? Again you can start with a 0. Now you can see case 0 in nested switch. Okay, so here I'm going to make break here, and case 1 I'm defining. For this particular case 1, now what I will do, I'm going to add the same statements here. This is the case 1, case 2, and finally I can use the case 3. Okay, so this is the particular case 3. Now what you understand here, basically this is we'll call it as a nested switch cases here. How we are defining, this is the outer switch case, and this is the nested one. Is nothing but it is a internal switch cases. Okay, this is the internal switch case, and this is the outer switch case. This is, we need to understand very carefully how this particular internal and the outer switch cases are working internally. Okay, observe carefully the any switch cases. Basically, if you try to define any switch cases here, what we need to understand first, how this particular count is, important here. The count basically based on this particular count value, it will try to identify the cases here, and if any one of the case is satisfied, for example in our example the count we provided as a 12, and if this particular case is satisfied, again we have a nested case. nested switch and cases I'm defining. So this is very important, we need to understand here. If I'm going to run this example, what is the value we are getting here? So case 3 in the nested switch. And what about this particular outer one here? For outer one, now what I will do, here I'm going to write here. Case 12 in outer switch here. And finally, we'll use a break here. We'll use this particular break here. So now observe carefully how we are doing with this. So first one is a nested is calling here, and later it's moving into the case 12 here. Basically, what you need to understand here, based on this particular count, if the count I modify to 1 here, if the count I modify to 1, what happens internally? Only the nested one will not execute here. Only the case one is executing here, because so this is the case is satisfied here, and I made as a break here. So if I'm not using the break, it will try to execute the all the cases that we already identified in the last example here. Okay. So this particular section, whatever this highlighting here, this is we'll call it as a nested switch cases. This is important one we need to understand. And how we are defining? So at the case level, if any case is satisfied, it will check for the one more switch case, and internally again we come up with multiple cases here. And here this cases, whatever this 0, 1, 2, 3, the cases we defined here, it's going to identify based on this particular target here. Getting the point? Based on this particular target here. So, okay. So this is the way of writing the nested switch cases here. So we have a one outer switch cases. Inside the outer switch cases, we are defining one more switch cases, that we'll call it as a nested switch cases here. Okay. So any questions here? Any questions regarding this particular nested switch cases? Okay, so if we don't have anything now, what we will do? So what we will do basically, we'll try to come up with a iteration statements here. Getting the point? We'll try to come up with a iteration statements here. So these are all the iteration statements, very important here. So how we identified yesterday this loop related example. Okay, inside this loop we have a multiple blocks here. First one is a initialization block, and later we'll call it as a conditional block, and later we'll call it as a iteration block. And the same way, so this loop is going to work based on this particular conditional block here. Okay, and along with this particular for loop, we have multiple loops statements in our Java language. So we'll try to identify what are all the different loops we are having. The first one is while loop. While loop is also basically, it's the iteration statement we are going to call. It will try to repeat multiple times until the particular condition is failed here. Okay, let's have a simple example on this while loop here, how it is going to work here. So I'm trying to make as a while test here, and I'm trying to create a one class here. So inside this particular while test, now what we will do here, what I'm doing here, I'm trying to declare one variable int n is equals to something like a 10. Int n is equals to 10 I'm giving. Okay. So once I provide this particular n value, later what I'm doing is I'm trying to write the loop here. So observe, this is basically keyword. If you're trying to write the while loop related information, so this is the way we need to write. First we need to define the condition here. This is the while loop condition. Okay, while loop keyword basically, and here I'm trying to write a condition. So if the particular condition is satisfied, getting the point. So whatever the condition we are writing, if the particular condition is will satisfied here, it will try to repeat the loop multiple times. Okay, so this will call it as a body of the particular while loop here. Body of this particular while loop here. Now what we need to understand basically, so this is going to work basically. Okay, now observe carefully what we need to understand here. This particular while loop is going to work based on this particular condition. How many times this particular condition will satisfy? The same time this particular loop is going to repeat here. Okay, otherwise the loop will come out of the out here. So line number 9, if you have any line number 10 statements, if you define, the line number 10 statements will execute it. But what we need to understand, this particular while loop every time is going to check this particular condition. The condition, whatever the condition we are writing, the condition is important here. Okay, for our simple example, now what I'm doing is I'm going to make as a n greater than 0. So see the condition, what is the condition I'm making here? N greater than 0. So right now, what is the n value we are having? 10. Now, so make this particular value here. So right now, 10 greater than 0. Condition will satisfy or not? Getting the point? Condition will satisfy or not? Here, it is a open side. The open side we are having the big value, and the closed side we are having small value. So is nothing but the condition will satisfy. So is nothing but we are going to get true. So if we observe carefully, whatever the condition we are making it, the condition will return true or false only. This is also important. Any application, if you're writing any application or any program, inside this particular while conditional, it should return true or false only. It cannot return other than this particular true or false, so the condition will not work here. Okay, so this is important inside this particular loop. Now observe, the condition is returning true. Now what I am doing is, I am trying to print this particular statement. Okay, what is the statement I am trying to print here? Something like tick value. So something like here, n value I'm going to print here. Okay. Now if we observe carefully, how many times this particular loop is repeat? So what is the condition is going to stop? At what time this particular condition is going to stop? Any idea what you are trying to think here? This loop, how many times is going to repeat? Like 5 times or 10 times or 100 times? How many times this loop is going to repeat? Any idea? No. So observe carefully what I'm doing here. I'm going to run this example. Now you can think here how many times this loop is repeating here. Now you can see this loop still it is repeating. Now you can see the value is trying to still it is printing. It is not yet stopping here. Why this loop is still like printing the values, but it is not yet stopping here. Getting the point. So this is important. We need to understand here how this particular the condition is not satisfying here. Okay, so manually I'm going to stop this. Manually only I'm stopping this. You can observe. So how many values it's printed here? These many values. So you can count here more than 100 times. Getting the point? More than 100 times this particular loop is printed here. But this is not the expected behavior. What we are expecting basically. What we are expecting basically, this particular loop, it needs to repeat certain time and it needs to stop here. Getting the point? So based on our condition, the loop is going to repeat for few times, like one time or 10 times or 100 times. After 100 time it is reached here, the loop it need to stop automatically. But whatever we define right now, it is not stopping here. It's keep on executing continually. But what is the best way to write the condition to stop here? Okay. So here the option what we can do simply I'm not like I'm doing here n minus minus. It's like a post to decrement operator I'm using. Post to decrement operator I'm using here. Okay. So now if you observe carefully, whenever I'm doing this particular post to decrement operator, how many times it is printing? How many times it is printing here? So 1 to 10 times. Now what you can understand here, this particular loop, it's printed only, like this particular loop is repeated only 10 times. At the 11th time, the condition is false. How the condition is false here? Now this is important here, how the condition we are making as a false here. So this is, we need to understand very carefully here. Okay. So now observe carefully. So first time how much we are having the n value? 10 value, right? Condition is satisfied because we already identified here 10 greater than 0. This is returning true. Okay, and later what we are doing here, n minus minus. What it will do basically, it will try to decrease the value. So what is the value is going to decrease? The n value, it is going to decrease to 9 here. Okay, so again we need to check the condition, 9 greater than 0. So the condition is satisfied. Again we are doing the line number 9, n minus minus. The 9 value will become 8 here. So 8 greater than 0. 8 greater than 0. Okay, so once this particular 8 greater than 0, what we need to understand here? So we need to check the condition. Again the condition is returning true, and the value decreasing here, 7, 7 greater than 0, and 6 greater than 0. Getting the point? So 5 greater than 0, 4 greater than 0. Getting the point? And so 3, 2, 1. So now if you write here 1 greater than 0, 1 greater than 0, condition is satisfied here, because one value is bigger compared to this particular 0. But whenever, so the condition will satisfy like this, 0 greater than 0, 0 greater than 0. So this particular section will return false. This section will return false here. Getting the point? So once this particular section will return false, it is coming out of this particular loop here. Okay, so now these many times this particular loop is repeated here. Whenever the value, the n value 0, n value 0, so it is stopping the condition. It is stopping this particular loop. Okay, so this is important here, because this particular loop we are going to write multiple times in our application. But only the problem what we need to understand here, so the condition here, whatever the condition we are writing here, this is important here. But in our example, I'm trying to write n greater than 0, but real time we are not going to write n greater than 0. Okay, so this will be different cases here. This will be different cases, like we are going to check the object information, or if the person something or member related or any, okay, something different type of object we are going to check here. Based on our object availability, we'll write the conditions here. We'll write this particular conditions here. Okay, so this is very important, we need to understand here. This is very important, we need to understand this loop here. Okay, any questions? Any questions? This particular loop, how it is stopped here? How it is stopped in the 1 to 10 times? Okay, so if we don't have anything, now what I will do, I'm going to make one more example. So here you can see what I'm doing here. Int a is equals to 10 I'm providing, and b is equals to 20 I'm providing. Okay, so this is the one more example I'm trying to provide. And here what happens this particular loop here, a greater than b, a greater than b, this loop will repeat or not? This particular loop will repeat or not? So could you think and let me know, the line number 12 I'm making the one more condition here. So if it is repeat, whether this particular message will print or not? Okay, just I want to check here what happens here. This particular loop, how many times this particular loop will repeat? If it is repeat, what is the values we are going to get? Okay, observe carefully. Now I'm running this same application. So you can see it is not printing here. 1 to 10 only it is printing. Why the second loop is not repeating here? Okay, so for that what we need to understand here, we need to check the condition 10 greater than 20. So this is, the condition is false here. The condition, what is the condition we are making? It is false here. So basically, if we want to run this particular loop, we should make condition like this: 20 greater than 10. Or what we can do? So 10 less than 20. So these are the two suggestions we can make here. Either we can go for this particular greater than 20 greater than 10, or we can make 10 less than 20. We can make 10 less than 20. So because whatever we are providing this particular condition, it is not satisfied. It is returning false value. Right? To make this particular condition as a true, so these are all the two suggestions we can make here. Okay, so this is very important, we need to understand here. Okay, let's understand the simple example. The same example I'm going to use it, and here what I suggested, I'm going to make as a less than, and here I will make as a plus plus and b minus minus. B minus minus. Now you can see how these two loops are it's going to repeat here. Now you can see 10 value initially 10 comma 20 it's printing, and later 11 19, 12 18, 13 17, and 14 16. So whenever the values are increased here, at what time the condition is failed here? Getting the point? At which value the A and B, at which value the conditions are failed here? This is we need to understand very carefully. So now you can see A value 15 less than B value 15. At the time of this particular condition, the loop is terminated. Like the loop condition is false here. So this condition will return false. Whenever it is returning false here, it will come out of this particular while loop. Now we understand here. So this is the one example. This is the second example. How we are checking the simple values. So along with this, I want to find out the middle value. Getting the point? I want to find out the middle value. So here, what is the best way to find out the middle value? Now you can see the same loop I'm repeating it. Now I will remove this section of code here. I will remove this section of code. So I'm making this particular while here. I'm not doing anything. Here only I'm going to make the values here. Plus plus and minus minus. Okay. So finally here the sysout statement I'm writing here. Midpoint or yeah, midpoint value. Okay, so here I'm going to make as a and here I'm going to make as a B. Okay, so observe carefully, this loop internally it will repeat. This loop internally it will repeat. So if we observe carefully here, this particular loop, whatever the value we are providing here, it does not contain any method body. So carefully observe, here we are opening the particular braces here, and we are closing this. Okay, but here we don't have any braces. So just we provided the while loop, and we provided the condition, and we given as a semicolon. We given as a semicolon. This is important. And this loop itself is repeated multiple times. Getting the point? This is important. This loop itself is repeated multiple times. Now if we observe, if I'm removing this, this is the body of this particular while loop. So here you can write the midpoint, but here we cannot get the midpoint here. Now you can see the values we may get different here. So you can see the midpoint value 11 19, 12 18, 17 17, 14 16. So up to this is repeated from this particular loop, and this is whatever we are printing here, the line number 15 one. This is we printing outside of this particular loop here. Getting the point? This is the way of writing this particular for loop. So we are having multiple way of writing this particular while loop. First one, we come up with n greater than 0, and later we are making plus plus a or the less than minus minus b, the condition we are making here. And finally, this is the midpoint of this particular values here. Okay. So this is the way of writing this particular while loop here. Any questions? Okay. So now what we need to understand, but this is for just understanding the, I'm trying to write these values here, but in the real time scenarios, these particular conditions we are not going to use. So you can think here, the condition, whatever the condition we are making, the value it should return true, then only it will go to the line number 13. Otherwise, it will come to the line number 15 here. Okay. This is very important whenever we are trying to write the while loop here. Now I'm moving into the do while loop. So the difference between while and do while loop, how it is going to work. Okay. So we identified the while loop now. Now I'm moving into the do while. So I'm going to comment out. Otherwise, we'll go to the one more. Okay. So this is the do while I'm defining it. And what it will do, this particular do while. The same example. Whatever we define the n value, I'm going to take the n value as the same. N value 10 I'm defining it. N value 10. So once I define this particular n value, now what I will do, here I'm going to check this particular do, and here I'm going to write the while here. Okay, so now observe the syntax here, how we are defining the do and while here. Earlier, only while loop we are using, and right now we are using do while. So why we are using the do while here? At first time, instead of checking the condition, first time we are giving an option to execute the statement. For the second iteration onwards, we are checking the values. Getting the point? So for the second iteration onwards, we are checking the values here. So this is very important. We need to understand here. This is very important. We need to understand how this particular do while is going to work. Okay. So let's see end value. I'm trying to print this particular n value. The same, whatever I implemented, the tick n value and n minus minus. So what is the condition we should make here? Something like n greater than 0. N greater than 0. Now observe carefully. In the while loop, what we did basically, first we check the condition. First we check the condition. If the condition is satisfied, then only we'll enter into this particular body here. Then only we'll enter into the body. But right now, what we are doing is, first time we are not checking any condition. So directly, it will hit this particular println statement and it will decrease the value. And for the second iteration, if this particular while loop will return true only, it will go to the next iteration. If this particular while repeat true only, it will go to the do. Otherwise, it will come out this particular below statement. Getting the point? So this is, we need to understand very carefully here. Let's see how these values are going to print. The same output we are going to get here. Now you can see 1 to 10. But the difference is here instead of checking the first time, we are giving an option to execute the statements. The body of the statements is going to execute first time, and from the second time onwards, we are checking the condition. Based on this particular condition, the values are going to return. So the do while is going to repeat multiple times. Otherwise, what happens internally? It will come out of the line number 10 here. Okay, this is, we need to understand very carefully. And along with writing this n minus 1, now what we can do, the another way of writing it, directly you can write here. Directly, you can write the same n minus minus at the condition level. So now you can see same value we are getting here. Okay, so this is, we need to understand the do while loop here. It's very, very important example we are discussing here, do and do while. Okay, so now I'm moving into the for, because we already discussed about the for loop here. So I think we don't want to discuss the basic for loop here. Now, what is the another way of writing the for loop here? Another way of writing the for loop I want to provide. Now you can see into a comma b. Into a comma I'm declaring here. And now what I will do, here I'm checking the conditions here. Here I'm checking the condition. So now if you can observe carefully, a is equals to 1, comma b is equals to 4. This is the another way of writing the for loop. And a less than b and a plus plus comma b minus minus. So observe carefully the initialization block. So not comma here, semicolon. Okay. So now you can see a is equals to 1, b is equals to 4. This is, we'll call it as a initialization block. And the condition will be the same, a less than b. And the iteration here, now you can see I'm trying to come up with a 2 here. So earlier we discussed only 1. Earlier, what is the loop we defined here? So if you observe, int x is equals to 0 and x less than 10 and x plus plus. Okay, so this is the one variable only we define here, only the x variable. But right now, how many variables we are having? Two variables here. Here, how many variables we are having here? Two variables. A is equals to 1 and b is equals to 1. Earlier, so x only 1. X, so the one variable we discussed here. Okay, so this is the way of writing one more for loop here. Now what I will do? Here, I will print the a and b values here. And b values. Now you can see if I'm going to run the example, it will repeating 1, 4, 2, 3 only 2 times. So if I'm going to give 14 or if I'm going to give as a 20, getting the point. If I'm going to give as a 20, now you can see the condition how it is repeating here. So this is the way the conditions are repeating multiple times here. This is very important here. So a value 1, b value 20, a value 2, b value 19, and finally a value 10, a value 10 and b value 11. Getting the point? Though this is the way we are going to write the different for loops here. Okay, so initial for loop we already identified. We don't want to discuss one more time. And this is the second way of writing whenever we are having multiple variables. Multiple variables. And now, so one more I want to provide inside this particular for loop. The for loops are very important. I am trying to explaining multiple ways here. So while loop and do while loops little bit common, and whenever we are discussing the for loop, it's we can define the multiple ways here. So now you can see another way of writing here. The another way of writing here. Now what I'm doing here. Here only I will use the same. Here the a value I'm starting with a 0. So semicolon I'm giving. Why I'm giving? The initialization block I'm not defining here. Okay, if I'm not defining this initialization block, so directly I'm defining the conditional block. So initially the condition I'm making as a false. So this is the not condition I'm using. Okay, so this is we already discussed in the previous sessions here, not condition. And there is no iteration statement. Now observe carefully. I am not providing the initialization. I'm not providing the iteration. Only I am providing condition here. Okay, so I will print this particular a value. Here I am printing a value. So what is the a value right now? It is 0. Okay, a value 0. And later, now what I'm doing is, I'm going to check the condition. If this particular a equals to 10. If this particular a value equals to 10, now what I'm doing is, whatever the variable we made, the variable I'm making as a true. And finally, a plus plus. A plus plus. So where we are writing the iteration block here? Inside this particular body. Inside this particular body. Getting the point? This is the another way of writing. Now you can see the initialization I'm making outside of the loop, and iteration I'm making inside this particular loop. Only I'm making the condition here. Only I'm making the condition here. So this is very, very important. We need to understand here. Getting the point? This is very, very important here. So initialization is not there here. Here initialization is not there, and iteration is also not there here. Let me run this example. Now you can see the how this a values are printing. So you can from a value 0 to a value 10. A value 0 to a value 10. So here I'm printing the message a value. Here I'm printing the a value. Getting the point. So this is the another way of writing this particular for loop here. Okay. So this is very important we can understand here. And do one more I'm trying to write infinity loop. So this is we'll call it as a infinity loop. So how we are going to call it as a infinity loop? Here there is no initialization and there is no condition and there is no iteration. So simply what I'm doing here, simply the value, whatever the value we are having, I want to increasing the value. So observe, here I'm increasing the a plus plus. So now you can see how many times this value is going to repeat. So now observe this loop, how many times it is repeating here. So just I'm stopping manually. So the a value, initially it started with a 0. A value, it is initially started with 0, but now you can compare here. So what is the big value here? So 40, so it's moved around lakhs here. Now what you understand here, this particular loop repeated around lakhs here. Getting the point. So this is the way we can write the infinity loop. Infinity loop is nothing but there is no condition, there is no the initialization, and there is no iteration statement. So just for understanding purpose, I'm printing this statement here. So how many times this particular loop is repeated? This particular value is going to give me the count here. Okay, so this is the count. So up to this, I only stop it manually. I only stop this particular example manually. So otherwise, it will keep on continuing here. Getting the point. So this is also one way of writing the infinity loop, but most of the cases we are not going to write any infinity loops here. So we will write like this. We will write like this once the loop is repeated few times. Once the loop is repeated few times, now what we are doing is we are trying to stop the particular loop here. Okay, this is all about the for loop, and now we discuss about the multiple loops here. First we come up with the while, and later we'll discuss about the do while, and finally we discuss about the while loops here. Okay, so these are all the three important loops we are having inside our Java language here. Okay, so any questions here? Any questions you are having? Okay. So if you don't have anything, now what I will do, I'm going to discuss about the one of the another important concept to call for each. So basically for each, how exactly it is going to provide the information. Okay, so for each basically it is initialized like it is introduced from the 1.5 onwards here. Now, so based on this particular for loop, we are going to write the for each. It is an alternative way of writing the for loops here. Okay, observe here. First, I will come up with a syntax here. How we can write the syntax. So this is the same keyword we are going to use, and but here the initialization, condition, iteration. So these are the values no longer available. But now how we are going to write? First I'm defining the type. And here I'm going to write itr variable. Getting the point. So type I'm defining, and the second one I'm trying to define the variable name, and the third one I'm going to define as a collection. Third one I'm going to define as a collection. So this is the syntax we need to follow. This is we'll call it as a for each. This is we'll call it as a for each. So and when it is introduced here from the 1.5 onwards. From the 1.5 version onwards, this for each is introduced here. Okay. What about this particular for loop and the do while loop? These are all the loops introduced from the beginning of our application, like beginning of our Java language. It's like a 1.0, 1.1 onwards. these concepts are introduced for do and while loop. What about this particular for each is coming from the 1.5 onwards. Okay. Now how we can write this? So the way of writing this particular for each here, so I'm going to write one more class for this. This is the for each example I'm defining here. And now what I will do, and here, this is an array I'm trying to create here. And this particular array will contain some values here. Okay. So these are all the values I'm having. So I'm trying to initializing some array concepts here because array contain the multiple values. Getting the point? Array contain the multiple values here. Now what I'm doing here, this particular values, I'm going to find out the sum value. So I want to find out the sum of this particular values here. So for that, I'm declaring one variable and I'm initializing with a 0. Okay, I'm initializing with a 0 and I'm trying to write first for loop int I is equals to 0. Okay, and here I less than. So the condition I'm making as a length here. Okay, and I plus plus. Finally, now what I'm doing here? Here I'm trying to do, so the whatever the assignment operator we used earlier, the same thing I'm trying to use. So plus is equals to num of I. Okay, so this will give you the sum value. Here I'm trying to print this particular sum. So now observe what I'm doing here. Here I'm trying to find out the sum value of this particular all the numbers. Whatever the numbers I'm having right now, I want to finding the sum value. So what is the sum value we are getting? 5IT. Getting the point? We are getting 5IT. But here, what is the loop we are using? This is the basic loop we are using, and we are repeating the multiple time. And based on the I value, we are doing the sum here. And what about this another loop? So observe how I am defining the for each. How I am defining the for each. Okay. So this is nothing but for each we will call it is. Getting the point? Now what I will do? Now what I will do? Sum place is equals to x. Sum place is equals to x here. Now, but again I'm going to print this particular sum here. Here I will provide the message here. Okay, so this is the for each sum and the above one for loop. Okay, first one is for loop sum and the second one is for each sum. But the sum is same, but the value, whatever we are writing here, okay. Okay, now what you understand here, I want to make one more sum is equals to 0. I want to make sum is equals to 0. So why I'm making the sum is equals to 0? Because if you observe, if you see the sum value, already 5IT is already available inside this particular sum value. It is already stored into this particular variable called sum. And from this particular sum, now what I'm doing here, again I'm trying to add the multiple values. So because of that, it is coming as a double value. It's coming as a double. Now you can see. So for loop is returning same 5IT and for is also returning 5IT here. Getting the point. So this is important we need to understand here. But the way of writing is different here. Here we are defining the initialization, we are checking the condition and we are doing the iteration here. But what about here? So this is the type. What is the type here? Int. Why I am making the int here? Because whatever the array type we are having here, so whatever the array we are having here, so it's contain the int type here. Okay. So whatever this particular int type we have here, I'm defining the type here, and this is the variable ITR variable. So if you see this, this is Now you can see, so this is the type I'm making as a integer. The ITR variable what I'm making, that is called X. You can make any name here. So other than this particular keyword here, we can make any name here. And it is a collection. So collections is nothing but it contains multiple values. So not only the one, it contains multiple values. So that is we are providing as a num. This particular num variable, it contains these many values. So these many values. But here if you see, where is a condition? Where is the condition? Okay. So the condition internally, it's going to check here based on this particular size. Based on this particular size only, this particular loop is going to repeat here. But here when we are trying to discuss about the for loop, explicitly we are making the condition. Explicitly we are making the condition. But when we are doing the for each year, we are not interested to provide any condition. Just we can use the collection variable. The collection variable, how many it is contained. If it is contained 1, 10 or 50 or 100. So based on the particular collection, the loop is going to repeat multiple times here. Okay. Based on this particular based on this particular collection value, the loop is going to repeat here. Okay. So this is, we need to understand about the for each concepts. Now see the syntax also, it's little bit different compared to this particular for loop here. Okay, this is very important. We need to understand. We need to know when we can use the for loop and when we can go for the for each year. Okay, any questions regarding this particular for loop and for each loop? Okay, if we don't have anything, now what I will do, we'll try to move on to the nested loops here. So yesterday, today, we discussed about the nested switch cases. So same way, we are going to write the nested for loop here. So same way we can write a nested while loop, nested do while, and so we'll see how we can identify the particular nested loops here. So before going to discuss about this particular nested loops here, what I want to provide the information. First, we'll see the one more example on this particular, for each one more example. The for each one more example I want to find out here. I'm trying to make as a comment what we discussed so far here. And here, what I'm doing here, so into sum is equals to, I'm initializing 0. So this is the same variable I'm defining. And whatever the nums we are having, I'm going to use the same nums here. Okay, the value I'm making as the same. And finally, this loop I'm going to make as the same. Finally, this loop also I'm going to make as a say. But the problem here, internally, I'm having conditions here. Internally, I'm making some conditions. So see the condition. So first I will print this particular X value. Okay. X value I'm printing. And after the X value, so I'm doing the sum of this particular X value. And later I'm checking the condition. If X equals to something. What is the condition we can provide here? Something like 63. If the X value is equal to 63, I want to break here. I want to break this. Now, so see this particular sum value. See this particular sum value. So 423 we are getting. Why we are getting the 423? Because this particular loop is not repeated all the values. Getting the, this is important here. The particular loop it stopped based on this particular condition. Okay. So inside this particular for each also, we can define the same, the conditional statements here. Okay. This is I want to provide the information here. And now here, what I need to discuss here, So what I need to discuss about this particular for each example this, and I want to write the nested for loop. That is, we'll call it as a nested for each. Nested for loop we already defined here. This is I'm going to write with a nested for each here. How can I write this particular nested for each? So observe carefully how I'm trying to write here. Okay, this is I'm trying to write a nested for each here. And inside this particular nested for each, now what I will do? Again, here I'm going to write something like this int. So this is the 2D array I'm trying to defining. It's like a, so we are going to write columns and rows here. Getting the point? So new int I'm defining, and I'm trying to providing values here 3, 4. Okay, 3, 4. Now, so what you need to understand here? What you need to understand here? So just to focus on the how we can come up with the nested for each here. Okay, nested for each, how I'm going to write this is important here. Okay, now observe what I'm doing here. I'm trying to declare here rows and column. It's like a 2D array. It's like a 2D array I'm defining, and I'm trying to inserting the value into this particular array. How I'm trying to inserting here? So it's something like here int I is equals to 0 and I less than 3 and I plus plus. So this is the one block I'm making, and one more you can see into j is equals to 0. Getting the one, j is equals to 0 and j less than 4 and j plus plus. So this is the another. So this particular section, whatever we are calling this we'll call it as a nested for loop, not the nested for each. And this is we'll call it as a outer for loop. Okay, so this is important, we need to understand. So once we completed this particular outer and nested, now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to insert the value. How I'm trying to inserting the value? So this is I will make as a I, and this is I will make as a j. Okay, so this is a I and j, I'm inserting the value. So ignore at this point, we'll discuss about the arrays concept later, but focus on the how we can write the nested for loops here. Okay, this is important here. And finally, I'm trying to multiply the values here. So j plus 1, and here I plus 1. Okay, I plus 1 with the j plus 1, it's going to multiply, and whatever the result we are getting. So observe carefully these two expressions. The two expressions, first they are doing the addition, and later they are doing the multiplication, and whatever the result we are getting, the result we are trying to store into this particular num of I comma j. Okay, num of I comma j. So once it is completed, now what I will do, I am using here, I'm using for each. Here I'm using for each here. So observe carefully. So this is the X array I'm using, nums I'm using, and one more for each I'm using. The type is same. The type is same here. So this is we need to understand carefully. This is we need to understand very carefully. If you observe, so this is the for loop, nested loop, and outer loop we defined here, and this is the nested for each loops here. This is the nested for each loops here. Okay. Now what we can understand here, I'm going to print this particular y value. So how I'm trying to print this particular y. So this is the way the y I'm trying to print, and finally I'm going to find out sum of y. I'm going to, okay, I did not define, right? Let me define sum of this particular value finally sum. Okay, but what we need to understand here, this is important. What we are doing basically here, this is we are doing a nested for loop and nested for each loop. How we are defining it? Basically, whenever we are trying to work with a for each here, so it should be a, the nested one should be a collection element. Here we are having the collection element, and here also we are having the collection element here, because that's why only I'm making a X array. It is only, it's not having the one value, it is having collection of values this. So from here again I'm trying to repeating. So the current value it's going to store into this particular y. The current value it's going to store into this particular y here. Okay, this is the important information we need to understand regarding this particular nested for loop and nested for each here. So if I'm going to run this, now you can see the sum we are getting as a 60. The sum we are getting as a 60, and the y value it started with 1 to 12. The y value it started with 1 to 12 here. Okay, this is important information we need to understand regarding nested for loop and as well as nested for each year. Getting the point? Nested for loop as well as nested for each year. So okay, so this is all about the iteration statement what we discussed so far here. Any questions here? Any questions? Okay, now, so what I'm going to do, here I'm going to come with one more nested loop here, but observe the output here, how it is going to print. So this is important, we need to understand here, how this particular output is going to print here. Int I comma j. So two variable I'm declaring here, and one more, the loop I'm defining, one more loop I'm defining, I is equals to 0, and I less than 10, and I plus plus. So this is the for loop I'm defining. Okay, not for each year, it is a simple for loop here. So j is equals to I, and j is equals to I, j less than 10, and j plus plus. So this is the nested for loop here. Here I'm defining print statement, I'm printing the star here. Okay, I'm printing the star, and finally I'm printing this empty println statement. So see the output here. So see the output here, how it is printing. The output, if you see here, it is printing like this. So from top to bottom. Sorry. So the bigger value to small values here. So the first one, it is repeating the bigger value. Getting the point? So first one, it is repeating bigger value to the last one value. So this is a way of writing the logical programs using this particular nested loops here. Getting the point? This is the way of writing the particular program. So using this particular values here. Okay. Now this is very important here. Now if you observe carefully, so one more way of writing here, j is equals to 0, and so j greater than of I. Sorry. Okay. So j greater than of I. Now you can see how this particular loop is going to repeat here. Okay. So maybe the condition is not satisfied here. So we'll see how this condition is satisfying with the debug mode, and later we can make opposite the way of example here. Okay, I value 0. So sorry, here we cannot make I value. Now you can see J and I. So I value 1. Every time I value it's become 1. No. So these are the conditions are very important we need to understand whenever we are trying to write here. So something is the condition is not satisfied. Okay, first we'll see how this particular example is going to work and later we can modify here. Now you can see what I'm doing here. I value 0. So j value how much we are having it. So you can see j is equals to I. J is equals to I right now. So whatever the I value we are having, I'm making into this particular j. So right now j value also 0. So condition is satisfying. So right now j value is increased here. So it's keep on increasing here. Now you can see the below here. Here you can understand the below statement here. Okay. So based on this condition, initially j value 0 and j value now 7. I value 0. So the right side section. The right side section you can see here, I value 0 here we are having, j value we are having 7. Okay, why the j value 7? Because the j value is repeating the loop. Nested loop is repeating. Okay, is moving out. Here it is printing the print statement here. So now it is going the I value 1. Again j value how much? It's starting with the 1 here. It is starting with the 1 here. Okay, this is important here. Now what I want doing here, from 1 to 9 it is repeating. 1 to 9 it is repeating. So after this 9 it is coming out of the loop. So it is going to the j value 2. So you can see the conditions how it is printing here. Okay, high value. Getting the point. So based on the j value it is repeating here. So now how we can write the opposite. So from 0 to I want to write first one here, second one and third one. This is the way of increasing now. But finally what is the way of increasing we did here? This is from bigger value to small value. Bigger value to small value we did. But right now, small value to big value we need to write the program. Small value to big value. So now observe carefully how we can write this. So j value of I. What happens internally? So this is important here. Here I want to check here instead of I want to write the condition of this. What happens internally? Let's see. So this loop is not repeating here. Why the loop is not repeating? We need to understand. So conditions we need to understand. So j of I and j0 less than I0. Condition will false. It will not print this particular value. Now, first value I want to print 1 star. How we can print the 1 star? Getting the pen. How we can print the 1 star here? So to print this particular 1 star, what we can do? So j equals to I. This is fine. But here, what is the condition we can make? Here the condition, what we can make here. So if we observe, here I'm making the 10. So j greater than 0 I'm making. Okay. So what happens here? So this is if I'm going to make j plus plus, what happens here? J plus plus, what happens internally? The value never will satisfy here. If I'm going to make j minus minus. Now let's see the simple example, what happens internally. So how this example is printing? So it is printing all the values. Getting the pen. It is printing all values. But what is the order we are expecting? The order we are expecting here. So 0 to like a first star and second iteration second star and third iteration third star we are expecting, right? But it is not printing like this. So it is printing the different order. What we can do here? What happens here if I'm going to print this I here? If I'm going to make this I, what happens internally? What happens internally? So it will not satisfy. I value how much? 0. J value, I'm making this. But here the condition, J0, I0. Getting the point. So that is wrong here. If I'm going to make the J value less than 10. If I'm going to make J value less than 10, how many times this particular value will repeat? Again, 10 times. But what we are expecting? Only one time it should print here. Okay. So only one time we need to print here. Getting the point. So how we can write this? So for example, if I'm going to write this, now you can see nothing. Now you can see how it is printing here. 0 to whatever we are expecting here. The order is printing or not. Getting the point. So how it is printing this? So we'll see the debug example. What we did first and later what we are doing. Okay, initially I value 0 we are providing, and whatever we are providing this into the J, and instead of greater than condition, so earlier we made less than 10 because we want to, first statement we want to get 10 values. First statement we want to get 10 statement, but right now what we are doing is, so greater than 0 we are making only one statement here. So if you see this example, if I'm going to run in the debug mode, now understand a little bit carefully. I value how much? 0. J value, what I'm doing is, whatever the I value right now we are getting, this value we are trying to store into the J. So J, I value 0 and J value also 0. J value also 0. So what I am doing is J less than 0. So it's nothing but 0 greater than 0. It is condition is false here. Once this particular condition is false, what is doing here? What is doing here? So it's moving into the else section. Now again it's printing the value. I value, how much I value we are having? How much I value we are having here? 1. Right now how much we are having? 1. Now what I'm doing here? J value also will become 1. So 1 greater than 0. Condition is satisfying here. Condition is satisfying. Once the condition is satisfying, you can see one value printing. One value it is printing. So now you can see, so second iterations, because J value 2. Okay. So now you can see J value 3. Okay. So this is the 4 values and 5 values we are printing. Getting the point. Now you can see the 5 values of we are printing here. So this is the way of writing the logical programs. This is, we'll call it as a logical program. So this is very important. Now we can see all the values we are getting here. Okay. Finally, this is coming out of the loop. This is the expected behavior. Getting the point. This is the way we need to think about the logical programs here, but here the logical will work on the, whenever we are trying to work on the nested loops here. Getting the point. This is important, we need to understand. Okay, this is all about the simple example on the nested loop here, and tomorrow one of the important example we are going to discuss something like introducing our classes here. So how we can come up with the classes example. So tomorrow we are going to discuss about the introduction about the classes. Okay. So any questions regarding our today's session? Okay. So if you don't have anything, now what I'm doing is I'm going to stop the session up to here. We'll continue tomorrow. So tomorrow also one of the important information we are going to discuss, that is called introductions here. So right now I'm giving the recorded sessions here. So just go through the recorded sessions and practice if you are having any questions. So otherwise, and in a tomorrow session, like whenever you are having any questions, so you can communicate with me. Okay, any other questions? So if we want to practice this entire example here, now I'm going to finally, I will create a one GitHub repository. I will push all the classes into the repository, and you can access the from the GitHub repository. So that I can provide you. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow.